was thinking about asking everybody to move further out. Because I want to ask questions and ask the kids to be part of the answers to them. But I guess you can hear me okay, and you'll help me hear them too. So, Lord God, on top of the prayers that were being lifted up in the midst of that song, God, where people were just, I don't know, it reminded me of going out on a high dive before taking a plunge into the pool. Like the boldness it takes to do that. And so, God, would you give us boldness? Would you give us boldness in preaching, but boldness as a people to make a splash? A boldness, I don't think you care whether we do a 2.5 something with a twist, or whether we just do a big old cannonball, as long as we're willing to get in, as long as we're willing to actually go and with boldness go after something. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do in this church. I want to talk about servanthood. Today we're moving into a new territory. Now, admittedly, it's a gradual move, but I want to congratulate us for having come so far. 2 years ago, it was just at the beginning of lockdown, right? Are we actually in the very week where it all started 2 years ago in this country? I think we are. And you guys, you survived. We survived, and here we are together after 2 years. And in some cases, we're seeing each other and touching each other where we haven't over that whole 2 years. So I want to say, laugh to your own back. And I don't know, would you just get up for a second, except for you, darling, you stay where you are, and just go and hug or shake somebody's hand, and like, you can do this now. We do have masks. We're being a little bit careful, and we should be. Oh, wait. Me too. I forgot me. Hi. 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 Some of you I've gotten to see more of. Hey, guys. You're my peeps. Hey. It's actually not the easiest thing to do, is it? But it's worth realizing that we've gone through something and we're coming out the other side. Doesn't mean that there couldn't be another variant that comes through, but they've kind of proved that all the lockdowns and all the rest of it doesn't make any difference. So I'm for plunging on through, being the people of God, being careful when we need to be careful, and keeping our economy going, and keeping our pursuit of God going. Okay, so here we are. Even being in this building is the beginning of our meeting in person again. So now what? What do we do? How's it going to work? Well, Darlene already told you that we are going to move forward. And by the way, I want to say, I forgot to say, David and Ellen, my clap your back too. And is anybody else on besides them? Anyhow, we're happy that you guys can join us. The first time that we've done in person and Zoom. So we're going to keep on growing in our electronic capabilities. And I want to say, I'm glad the kids are with us. Now we have to figure some things out, don't we? We have to figure things out so that kids can have the best possible time in church, and adults too. And some of that should be together and some of it not together for that to happen, I think. So we're going to work on that. And we're going to, we'll come up with some things. And I think we'll get it working. Now today, we're going to do something in just a little while that's going to symbolize being back together. And that is washing each other's feet. If that makes you apprehensive to think about washing each other's feet, you don't know how it's going to work, you don't want people to look at your feet, you're not sure you want to touch other people's feet. Remember, disciples felt the same way when Jesus did that. They weren't sure how that was going to work out, and they came up with excuses. And yet, it was one of the most powerful things that Jesus ever instituted, and people do it all over the world to take a step further in serving each other. Just to mention, this is just to bolster what Darlene already said. Did you mention next week, Darlene?
I don't think so.
Okay. So this week, here we are in this church. This is one possible place that we could be on Sundays, this time of day. It's not the only time of day we could do it, but we couldn't do it on Sunday mornings. And then in 2 weeks, as Darlene already told you, we'll be in a youth center, which will be on Sunday mornings. And so we'll have to see whether you like the way that feels, the way that works. Next week, we're not going to be in either place. We have a guest speaker. Guest speaker's in New Jersey, so it made more sense for us to just be in our homes and do the same old Zoom service we have done in order to make that happen, right? And I think it'll be a great service. Jennifer Channing is at our old church in New Jersey. She's now the new lead pastor of that church, and I think it's going to be an excellent message that we'll all enjoy. So after we have that meeting next week in that other place, in the youth center, then we're going to decide together where we're going to meet in the near future. You could tell the leadership team, neither of these places meets all of our needs. And, I think one of them will meet our needs well enough to move forward, but because it's really important for us to begin to get into the world and have an impact on the world that we touch. Okay, so now I want to talk about serving. I want to ask the children, but I'll be asking all of us too. Are you aware that there's a war going on in the world? How about it, guys? Like, or parents, do you think your kids are aware? Yes. You said, Andrew, that they are aware. Yeah. And are you aware from talking about it at school, talking about it at home, or from TV, or what? All of them? Maybe we could get a... Hey, you guys can just hold this back here. And you can answer too, Andrew. It's okay if...
Asher said school.
Right. And so, but adults, we've watched maybe a fair amount of coverage about it, right? It makes us sick, doesn't it, to see a war going on? I mean, it just feels terrible. Why does it make us feel so bad for there to be a war? It's not just that people are fighting, it's that people in one country are invading another country and trying to take that country away from the people that are in that country. That feels terrible, doesn't it? I mean, wouldn't we hate that? Wouldn't we hate it either way if it was people coming and trying to take our homes away? And wouldn't we hate it if our country was doing that to another country? Either way, it would feel terrible to know that's going on. So that's called an invasion. But I'm going to say something kind of surprising, which is we're going to invade. We just invaded this church, you guys. We invaded this neighborhood. Just happens to be where the Cook family lives. They live in this neighborhood, and Lily, didn't you grow up like a half block away from here? Yeah. So this is pretty familiar to you. Come on. So it wouldn't be quite as much of an invasion for you, but it's probably changed quite a bit in the years since you grew up over there, right? So when we move, hey, look who's come. And somebody just came from a birthday party, I think. Is that right? Was it your birthday party? Wow! Happy birthday! Happy birthday to Isabel. Wow, we're glad you guys came. Hey, Claire. So we're talking about that our church is invading North Potomac this week. And if we decided that this was the place that we're going to be week after week on Sundays, then we would want to make friends with the neighbors, wouldn't we? So that's a little bit of an invasion, but it's not a bad invasion, it's a good invasion. It's an invasion to bring something, but to bring something good. We wouldn't want to go any place just to be there. We'd want to go someplace to bring. What do we bring? What is the good thing that a church brings if it goes into a neighborhood, into a new place? Come on, you gotta help me out. Hey, John. Sam.
Well, I think there's the obvious physical things, but I think there's also a displacement in the spiritual realm.
It's got a mic for it.
I think that there's, there's things that happen in the physical sense, but I think there's also a displacement that happens in the spiritual realm.
Okay, so what do you, like what? How do you help? How do you change things in the spiritual realm? I think I'm gonna make you do my work. So here's the question I asked, because some of you are, the Griffin family is just getting used to being here, although they've probably been here the most. So I just asked the question, if we invade North Potomac or Gaithersburg, if we go to the youth center, what do we bring? What? Like what? Bible? Yeah, come on. Like, how would you bring the Bible, though? Let Claire give a bigger answer. She doesn't want to. How do you even bring the Bible to a place that you live in? How do you do it if you're at school?
Mobily. If you have a phone.
Oh, so you're saying you could read the Bible on your phone?
But you could also share it with other people.
All right. So that's one thing a church does, right? It shares the good news. It shares the Bible. What else? What else could a church do? Give it to that young man there.
Well, the church can unify people as one, because we are all one in Christ.
Oh, okay. So how would you do that? Like, how would you be more one? Any idea?
Well, Jesus can bring the most unique people together.
Okay.
And at Jesus' table, instead of the rich, instead of the richest people, he puts I guess you could say the forgotten as his honored guest.
That's amazing. I love that. How could a church do that? How would you do that, Sam? What kind of things would you do at church? And other people can help them answer this question.
Well, you could pray and worship.
Okay.
And be in his presence.
Okay. What else could you do? Any other ideas? I haven't heard anybody say something that, Darlene, what's the thing that you do that often helps when you go out to, I don't know, any store or someplace? What do you do that makes a difference to people?
I ask the Holy Spirit what He wants to say to somebody, and then I start talking to them.
Right, but I've noticed you do something before you do even that.
Right?
You smile.
Oh, that's right.
Do you think a smile can make a difference? Okay. Could we have an invasion of smiles? I'm serious. Could you actually change the atmosphere in a city if you smiled and other people smiled back? I wonder. What's that? Yeah. What I heard was you can change. Go ahead.
It can change the environment on how people feel.
Have you ever seen that happen, like in your day? Anybody as well?
Yeah, because one time I know one of the guys laughed, and they were kind of sad. And so when I made them laugh, and so when I was happy and I was hanging out with one of my friends, they kind of became happy-ish, and then they kind of affected the violence or something.
Okay. So one thing I heard in that is you could care about people too. Like if somebody's got something difficult going on and you care about them, does that make a difference? Okay. But that's kind of what individual Christians can do, which a church is a bunch of individual Christians, but we're also something together. Here's a question for you. What about, this might be more for the adults, but the kids probably would know the answer. Like, what about out on the roads? How could you make a difference on roads? Yeah, like, John, you have what, 2.5 hour commute most of the time? You have a great opportunity to feel terrible about things, don't you, with a 2.5 hour commute? But what do you do to change it?
Listen to Christian music on the radio. And I know I can't change a lot of what's going on in the traffic, and I just relax and just relax in the Lord. That's what I did when I listened to the music in the car.
Otherwise, it would be much harder to do it, right?
Yelling and screaming isn't going to solve the problem, but relaxing the Lord sure helps a lot.
Okay, what else can Christians do that changes the atmosphere or changes the way things are? Adults, I haven't heard that much from you. You get to say too.
Invite them for pizza.
Come on. And actually, we're not really following Jesus too well. We're having pizza today for us and not inviting anybody. We really ought to go out on the road and invite some people. Don't you think?
Practice to make sure we do it right when we invite them.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for making us feel better.
As a church, we could have, our presence could be made known, like in different things that are happening in the community. Have our church there be a presence, with our signs and with participating in community things as a church.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those answers. I'm going to move a little bit forward. I want to tell you about 3 kinds of serving, just a little bit about each, and I can give you some examples. So we talked about making a dent or making an improvement, changing things, like in a neighborhood. But if there's one person that we want to serve more than anybody else, who would that be? Come on. Yes, God. We want to serve God. And hey, Sam, I'm guessing that in your family that you guys have gone over the story of the prophet Samuel, right? Because you're Samuel. Have you gone over that story?
Pretty sure.
Okay, but you're not remembering it exactly right now, right? I just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking about you and you'd be surprised saying, I didn't know that about me.
No, like the story where he heard God's voice.
Yeah.
And when his mom gave him, couldn't take care of him, so she gave him to prophet.
I'm moving, I'm sorry.
You're good.
The prophet, and then he heard God's name, and then the prophet knew that it wasn't him, it was God, so he listened. And God went through, I guess, the rest of his life.
I think you know that story pretty well. I hope you don't mind my saying it, Sam, but not that long ago you were over at our house and I watched another Samuel have a conversation with God. You and God talked, and I thought that was awfully cool. So, can we all do that? Is that something we can all do? Can we all talk to God? How do you serve God? Maybe I asked it too loud. How can you serve God?
You could in some of the books of the Bible, they said when you serve others, you're serving me. If you give to the poor and help out with people that are less fortunate, you'll be helping God and serving Him.
I think you cheated. I think you must have read the Bible or something. That's true. But let me see if I can find a different way of asking it, because I don't want to make it harder than it is. But how do you know what God wants you to do? I mean, serving somebody usually means finding out what they want and doing that, right? What am I hearing? Sorry, I'm making some people get some exercise.
Sometimes just have a feeling, if you drive past a place and you see some guy that just needs help, you just have this feeling, and then sometimes you just know it's God.
Right. Go ahead, Claire.
Also, just sometimes God will give you a sign on when to do whatever, or how or where.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question, and you older kids, let let the younger kids see if they want to answer first, and you can help them. You can bring the mic to them. So here's my question. Is there a way that you can find out from God what he wants you to do? And I know you can read the Bible, and I know you can get an impression, like the girls were just sharing, but what can you do that makes for darn sure you know what God has in mind for you? Who said that?
And you can pray and ask him and to give you a sign what he wants you to do,
Okay.
like a dream or a vision,
Uh-huh.
and show you what he wants you to do.
Right. And I want to remind us that you kids have already told us one of the things you can do is the Bible tells you a lot of things that God wants us to do, right? But it's just as important to talk to God, like Isabel was sharing, like John, or was it Jonathan that shared that? And it's really important for us to talk to God. So I'm glad you think that's important. Adults, is that important to you? Do you spend some time talking to God? Try to do that? I think this is a group that does. And some of us even write about it. Some of us do podcasts and other things about it. Some of us spend time on the highways talking to God and listening to God about it. Okay, so Samuel, he spent time with God. Do you know how old he was when he first went into ministry? Anybody have a guess, Claire?
I'm just guessing here. 18.
That would be a good guess, but not right.
12.
Hmm.
16.
You think it was 7? Why do you think it was 7? 8? What? Okay. I think it was younger than that because it said he was weaned. That's all it says. Mothers, when are kids weaned?
Babies.
Because I think they weaned them when they were older,
Yeah,
depending on the culture.
right. So, yeah, so pretty young. At any rate, I was surprised, and you're right, it could be a range. But very early age, Samuel was in service to God, so much so that that's what his whole life was about. What was he used for? He's most famous for being the guy that God sent to choose and put in position the first 2 kings of Israel. So King Saul, and then King David. That was Samuel's job, to find those guys, tell them what to do, and put them in the position of being king. That was a pretty important thing. He got that job by serving God, by spending time talking to him, and God gave him more and more important things to do in his life. So when we talk about serving, let's never forget that all other serving that we do comes from serving God. If that makes sense. So I don't know how to ask this exactly, but a lot of kids get dedicated to God, often when they're infants. Sometimes they even get baptized as infants, and or later, a little bit later in their life, they may get dedicated to God. But there's a certain point in every person's life that becomes a follower of Jesus where they choose to follow him and they make it public before their whole church. They say, I want to follow Jesus. And then when they do that, then usually, at least in a Holy Spirit oriented church, they might get baptized at that point, and then they may get prophesied over, where God will say things about them, and it'll help you know what the call that you have is in your life. How are you going to serve God? God will show you. So let's just pray a prayer right now. Let's just say that all of us have chosen to be baptized. We all just jump in the swimming pool and we baptize one another. And we might say to God something like, God, would you show us what you want us to do? Why am I here on this planet, God? How can I make a difference? Even in my family, even in my neighborhood. How can I make a difference? And why am I here, God? What are you going to do with me in my life? I want to serve you. In Jesus' name. Okay, I'm going to move right along. I'm going too slow, I think. Serving our neighborhood. How many adults have heard of a guy named George Mueller? Okay. Well, George, I'm going to tell a very brief story, as brief as what we said about Samuel. He was born in Germany. Actually, it was called Prussia at the time. And he used to get in trouble a lot. I don't know if they had a nickname for Georgie about how he got into trouble, but he used to get in trouble for stealing things and making noise and stuff like that, things that he shouldn't have been doing. But when he got older, maybe a young teenager, he got into a Bible study. Maybe it was a Bible club kind of thing. And in that studying the Bible, he really enjoyed it. And he started to feel like he wanted his life to count for something and be different. And then people said to him, you're so smart and you have such a way about you that we think you ought to go to college. And after you go to college, maybe you'll go into the ministry. He said, I want to go to college, but there's no way I can afford it. And so somebody said to him something similar to what my wife said to me when, just before I became a Christian. She said to me, well, you'll never get anything like that, meaning saying, I don't see how it can happen. Anybody ever said, I don't see how it can happen? And then had somebody close to you say, you'll never get anything like that? Well, that was right, and that was right for George, too. Somebody said that to him, and he said, oh, you're right. So he prayed. He said, God, I don't see any way I can go to college. How can I do it? And the very next day, the next door neighbor came next door and said, I've been seeing you around here, young man. I've heard some good things about you. Would you be interested in tutoring? And so you know what tutoring is, you guys? Yeah, okay. So he tutored students and made enough money from the tutoring to go to college. But here's the point. He asked God. So it started with serving God. Once he had that relationship with God, he brought everything to God. And that's what he became famous for. So fast forward a couple of years, he finished college, he went off to ministry in England, and he got in trouble again. Not like he was stealing things, but it's like he had trouble concentrating on his studies and on other things. And it's because he felt restless, so he'd start walking through neighborhoods. And as he walked through neighborhoods, he saw that there were a lot of kids that were on the streets, that they didn't have any place to live. And it bothered him so much. And he talked to people about it, and they said, I think what you're talking about is an orphanage. An orphanage is, you guys know what orphanages are? Okay. I realize it's pretty common knowledge, but most of us probably haven't had experience with an orphanage. But it's a place where if your parents have died or can't take care of you, you would live. And apparently, at that time, over 100 years ago, there were a lot of kids that didn't have any place to live. Nobody was. They had to scrounge for their meals. They had to beg for them. They had to find ways to do things. Well, he had this idea. I want to build an orphanage, but I have no idea how to do it. But he remembered how he got the money to go to college. So he just talked to God. And he would talk to God. And almost always within a couple of days, somebody would bring him something that enabled him to give food or money to somebody. And before you knew it, an orphanage existed, and it never happened by his doing fundraising. The only way he did fundraising was he talked to God. He never told people what he needed. He always told God what he needed, and God made it happen. Somebody would come and bring a load of bread, and the baker would say, God told me to bring this to you, George. Do you have a use for it? Yes. And that's how the orphanages all around England got started under George Mueller. So this guy served. He started by serving God, and then he learned how to serve his neighborhood. He learned how to serve wider. I think that's a pretty cool story. What do you think? So how do we serve? How are we going to serve our neighborhood? Let's say we come to this church regularly. How can we serve? Do you guys know? You guys have an idea what we ought to do? I don't. What could we do to find out?
That's just a pray.
Yeah, come on, man. You got that lesson real good. And that's really important. And it takes a while, but following God always works. So I can't even ask you what it is specifically that God's going to tell us, because we have to ask in order to find out, don't we? I don't want to keep on talking about that. I want to go to the next thing, and then we'll be done. But you kids are really good with the answers. So one other form of serving is just serving each other. And what I mean is, like, who was the gang that Jesus hung out with? Good. That's a better answer than the one I was looking for. I like that answer. Did you guys hear it? Hung out with sinners. And that's absolutely right. It's right on the Bible, isn't it? Okay. But who did he hang out every day with? Yeah, the disciples. He hung out with the disciples. Who do you guys hang out with every day? Okay, your friends, also your family, right? And on Sundays and some other days of the week, when we're not in a pandemic, you hang out with us, a church. A church is a place where we hang out together too. So, did Jesus and his buddies, his friends, did they do anything to serve people? Like what?
miracles. They
Come on.
they
What?
did miracles like they prayed for people. And when Jesus died, Jesus gave him the power to do things that he did.
Wow.
Like miracles,
So you get
make
500 points for your first answer, but an extra 500 for answering a question I didn't ask, which is a great answer. Any of the other answers? What else did Jesus and the disciples do?
Feed the 5,000.
Yeah, come on. Although it took a miracle to do it, didn't it? Yeah. Feeding people. What else?
Witness to others.
What was it?
Witness to others about his faith.
Yeah, just telling people about God and about good things that God had done in their life. Anything else? Didn't hear it.
they hear like I said, that Jesus is guest of honor in the the sick, and he healed them. And well, he didn't, but he gave the apostles the gift and the ability to heal people.
Okay. Sam, would you come up here for a minute? Yeah. Yeah. Could you tell people again? You did it once on when we were on Zoom, but could you tell people what God told you in our living room when you talked to them and asked them something? What did He tell you to do?
So basically, when I went to the Tittle's house, I asked them if they need prayer, and they said they need prayer for their knees because they've been bending their knees a lot when they moved boxes into their new house. And then before I asked them, I asked God if I knew anyone who needed prayer, and when He gave me the word help, so then I helped out the Tittles. I prayed for their knee, and then when I asked them if they were okay, after I prayed for them, they were able to like bend their knees, and it wasn't sore and it didn't hurt.
That's right. And Darlene especially needs you to pray again, although it's not her knee as much as pain comes from her sciatic nerve. But Sam, God actually told you to serve, didn't He? And have you tried to do that since then?
No, but we have this thing coming up at our school called Servathon. We're gonna have to serve.
Okay. You're gonna get to do that?
Yeah, sometimes they teach us how to make blankets for like little cats and dogs that don't have hands, and we like give them canned food.
That's great.
Yeah.
I actually asked your mom.
My mom?
Yeah, I asked your mom, I said, has it made any difference in hearing from God about helping? And she said, yes, he actually tries to be help, and sometimes people aren't able to receive the help that you want to give, but you ask people.
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to ask you to do something. Did anybody else have anything like that they wanted to share? Ben, you can come up, dude. Come up.
But like, there's a servathon, and it's not like anything like Santa, but there's like a servathon, and like, there's also like sponsors.
Sponsors for the
Yeah, for the
for
servathon to
service.
help firefighters, orphans, and elderly.
So we could actually
Yeah.
help sponsor?
Yes.
Okay. So we're giving you free advertising, is that right?
Yes. No.
The money that is given to the school will go to the funding for all the acts of service we do like making blankets, canned food drives, making firefighters, and like a lot more.
Fantastic.
It's a sponsor.
You guys let us know, and
They're asking
we'll find some ways of helping.
you guys want to sponsor us?
I want to ask you guys to do something now. So all this stuff about serving is because your church that you're part of, Wonder Church, is in the process of choosing a place to move into. You understand what I'm saying? Could be here, could be the other place you haven't seen yet. And when we move there, we're going to make some decisions about what ways we can serve and have an impact in the community. Here's what I want to do. I want you kids to lead us in praying that God will show us and will give us ways to have an impact, to make a difference in our community. Could you start us with that, Sam? And maybe somebody else, one of the other kids, will pray too.
They want me to pray.
Yeah, I do. Talk to God right now on our behalf and ask Him if you would.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that a wonderful group of people get together. And I pray that you'll help Richard and Darlene and really just the rest of Wonder Church to help make a hard decision where we will stay or how you in it. And if it's here or the other place, you'll know we'll use it for good and not evil. And we'll use it to glorify you as much as possible and overflow the anointing of the Holy Spirit and worship you as much as we can. And we pray that you'll help them with the decision, because any decision they make with you along the way is a good decision. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lord.
I'd like somebody else to add a prayer, though. Come on, one of you other ones. I'd like Sam. You did a great job of praying for half of it. The other half is that God would show us how to serve the community. Come on, buddy. For you to ask God to show us how to make a difference where we live. You just pray the way you think we should pray.
I pray that God, that you will show us how to serve, and that the way you want us to serve other people as we do it. And I pray that you can just help us and show us the way where we should serve. And with anything that we serve, we know it'll be good because it was sent by you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. You can hand that to Mr. Andrew. Okay, that's it. That's the message. And would you guys applaud our kids?
Wow.
See, I feel like I did my job, which wasn't to preach to you, but to show us that we already have the answer kind of within us. And, it shows how valuable it is to give our kids a good Christian education. You families are doing an amazing job. I hope you realize it. So, okay, we're going to move into washing each other's feet. And to move into that, we're going to see a video that we've seen before, but maybe not everybody's seen it, from Jesus Storybook Bible.